So I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm just waiting for you. I just want to make sure we're clear. I'll know when to go, right? Good morning and welcome. I'm Bernie Dagenet. I'm President and CEO of the Mainline Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us today at our Greater Philadelphia Summit on Business Impact and Volunteerism. I was thinking this morning about all the phrases that have gained popularity over the past year during this pandemic: abundance of caution, new normal, pivot. I think my new favorite one, for those of you who saw the cat video with the attorney speaking in cat face in the last few days to a judge, my favorite phrase I think is going to be, I'm here, I'm in person, and the key line is, I am not a cat. So we thought about putting the cat face up, but I was afraid I wouldn't be able to turn it off like that gentleman. So I can hear you all laughing, so we'll move on to more serious matters. This is one of my favorite events because it's about working together to make a difference in our community and in our region. It's about nonprofits and foundations and businesses and a little bit of government seeking to solve the major issues. Corporate social responsibility, our topic for today, is about lifting people up and having a vibrant region for the arts, creating sustainable practices, educating talented workers who will lead our great companies into the future, spurring our startups, empowering our nonprofits. As our region continues to seek its way out of a health and economic crisis without precedent, the need for businesses and nonprofits to work together effectively has never been greater. Some of the lessons that the Chamber has learned through this pandemic have been essential to helping us to better serve our members. Effective communications regarding grants and loans, federal, state, regional recovery efforts, and ways in which businesses can support each other have been essential to the 950 companies that are members of our Chamber of Commerce. And I stand today in the conference center of the Chamber offices. If you could see my view, you would see it's filled with federally funded boxes of personal protective equipment that we're distributing in partnership with one of our counties. And as we've moved through this devastating pandemic, so many businesses have proven to be resilient and adaptive, and that's certainly part of the story here at the Chamber, where an effective staff and outstanding board of directors and dedicated membership has helped us to adapt and to serve our members more effectively. We recognize the impact on our healthcare workers, emergency responders, and other essential workers, and we seek to support the employees and companies that due to their nature are unable to operate remotely during this time. And we call on our governments on every level to get their act together when it comes to distributing the vaccinations. The counties have additional capacity and the state is not working effectively with those counties. We are optimistic that that will change. The communication is taking place and we hope to see an uptick very soon. Much of what we do is behind the scenes, convening business leaders, elected officials to advocate for more effective recovery efforts, participating in county task forces, convening diversity, equity, and inclusion leaders with major employers from throughout Greater Philadelphia, and helping companies to interact with the great and diverse talent attending schools throughout our region. The Chamber would not be able to do its work without the support of so many unwavering members and sponsors who've continued to prioritize their involvement. We continue to add members and support members regardless of their ability to make a membership investment at this time, if that's what it takes to help them through their time of need. And I urge you to use the Chamber's online directory as you're thinking about restaurants, retailers you can patronize and help support based on your appetites, and arts organizations based on your appetites and interests, while following, of course, safety protocols as we seek to avoid further setbacks to recovery. This morning, we'll hear from a series of outstanding speakers in the Zoom webinar portion of our program. We will post a link to a Zoom meeting where we will have facilitated breakout rooms. We'll come together, share observations, and wrap up by 11:30 a.m. I encourage everyone to follow us into the meeting rooms when that time comes. And I promise it will be worth your while to connect with peers and share ideas. I want to thank all of our members who are present today for your support, and particularly to our sponsors who stepped up to help us produce today's event. Our presenting sponsors today are Fiduciary Trust International and Stradley Ronan Stevens & Young. Our summit sponsors are First Trust Bank, Independence Blue Cross, Vanguard, and Vertex Inc. Our leader sponsors are Aqua Essential Utilities, BB&T Now Truist, Brinker Simpson and Company, Closets by Design, Enterprise Holdings, the Haverford Trust Company, law firm Kaplan Stewart, Mainline Today, M&T Bank, My Benefit Advisor, PNC, St. Joseph's University, Stephen DiOrio State Farm Agency, and Wisfis Bank. We thank you all for your support. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenting sponsor, George McFarland Jr. He's Regional Managing Director of Fiduciary Trust International for the Pennsylvania region, to say a few words of welcome. Welcome, George.
Hey, thank you, Bernie. And good morning, everyone. As Bernie just mentioned, my name is George McFarland, and I am the Regional Managing Director for Fiduciary Trust Company International, responsible for the Pennsylvania market. I also serve on Fiduciary Trust Executive and Management Committees. Previously, I had the privilege of serving as the CEO and President of Pennsylvania Trust Company, a local wealth management organization with about 60 team members located in Radnor. As the needs of our clients became ever more complex and the demands for state-of-the-art technology grew, we recognized that the benefit of joining with a well-established top-tier national wealth management company that could offer enhanced services and deeper resources. Founded in 1931 and now celebrating its 90th year in the wealth management business, Fiduciary Trust proved to be a perfect partner for us, and our two businesses merged last May. Fiduciary Trust importantly shares our client-centric culture and values, where we work closely with individuals, families, and nonprofit organizations to build customized investment portfolios, as well as to help our clients realize their financial goals. So our name has changed from Pennsylvania Trust, but we still are in the same Radnor location. We still have the same local management team, local client service team, and probably most importantly, same dedication to servicing our clients. As Bernie knows, one of the hallmarks of Pennsylvania Trust always had been our commitment to support our community. And this practice, I am really pleased to say, continues with Fiduciary Trust. Each year, we have been pleased to offer financial support to various area nonprofits. And in addition, a number of my colleagues serve on boards and committees of nonprofit organizations. Back in 2016, it was our honor as Pennsylvania Trust Company to be chosen by the Mainline Chamber of Commerce to receive the Mainline Gives Back Award in recognition of our consistently strong charitable involvement. We received a number of other awards over time, such as being voted by Philadelphia area attorneys as offering the #1 trust administration services in the area for 2 years in a row now. But the award that we received from the chamber really ranks right up there in terms of the important ones for our organization, because it really validates our culture and our values to support and give back to the community in which we all live and work. So today, as Fiduciary Trust Company, it is our pleasure to be one of the sponsors for this important summit, bringing together, as Bernie said, greater Philadelphia business and nonprofit leaders to discuss ways in which we all can work more effectively together to make the most impact possible. One of the highlights of this summit is coming up next. You'll be hearing from two really of the preeminent Philadelphia leaders, one from the business side, Bill McNabb, and another, Vic Dewan, from the nonprofit side. These men really need no introduction, but let me just offer a small introduction in any event. Bill McNabb, as probably everyone knows, is the former chairman and chief executive officer of Vanguard, and he currently serves as chairman of the board of the Zoological Society of Philadelphia, overseeing the Philadelphia Zoo. He's also a board member of various corporate boards, including United Health, IBM, and Axiom. He's the chairman of Ernst & Young's Independent Audit Committee, and he's a board of CECP, the CEO Force for Good, and a board member of the Philadelphia School Partnership. In addition, Bill has served as the executive in residence at the Raj and Kamala Gupta Governance Institute at the LeBeau College of Business at Drexel University. Similarly, I think everybody knows Vic, but Vic has served as president and CEO of the Philadelphia Zoo since 2006. He's responsible in that capacity for institutional leadership and strategic direction for all of the zoo's programs, services, operations, and fundraising. And prior to joining the zoo, Vic served as president of Wachovia Bank's Philadelphia and Delaware region. He is a member of Vanguard's Charitable Board of Trustees, the Mayor's Cultural Advisory Panel, and has served on the board of directors of the Pennsylvania Ballet, Philadelphia Children First Fund, and the Philadelphia Convention and Visitor Bureau, amongst others. So we are in for a treat in listening to these two folks. And with that, Bernie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, George. We appreciate that. We appreciate your support. I want to welcome Bill and Vic. Thanks to both of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. I'm going to start by asking a question. As I've talked about this event, I'm going to go to Vic first. I've talked about this event. Everybody says, I love the zoo. I was talking to a gentleman from Louisville yesterday. He says, I love the zoo. He used to live in this region, and it is a beloved part of our region. And I'm asking you each to share your perspective as CEO and as chairman of the board on how the zoo has managed to get through this challenging pandemic. I'm going to ask Vic if you'll kick us off, please.
Sure, Bernie, thank you. And George, thank you for that introduction. You know, we're coming up onto the first anniversary of when the zoo closed to the public on March 16th of last year. And this is a good moment to reflect on how we've been managing through this past year. You know, when we closed, we thought the pandemic period and its impact would be only, I don't know, 14, 16 weeks or something like that. But by mid-May, it became apparent that it would be much longer than that. So managing through the pandemic has many different facets to it. We've certainly thought about it through the financial lens, through the lens of mission, through our people, and certainly through governance. But I think when we first closed, our first focus was on our animals and our staff and making sure that we could be keeping them safe. The animals were susceptible to the virus too, and we thought the most important thing we needed to do first for the safety of our staff and our reputation was to make sure that we kept all of our stakeholders safe. I'm pleased to say, and I'm glad to say, and I feel fortunate to say that a year later, we've had no cases of on-site transmission of the disease. And while we've had staff members infected by the virus, it has only been through transmission from other sources. But back to the zoo overall, Bernie, and your question. First, the financial side. We are the most heavily visited ticketed destination in the Philadelphia area. We usually get more than 1 million visitors a year, and we run a budget of our annual operating budget of roughly $30 million. So how do you face the brutal truth of being able to manage financially without any visitors in a period when you have your highest revenue and the reality that you cannot furlough the animals? You're going to have a very high fixed cost base. And we were anticipating that we would have a gap of roughly $20 million. The pandemic has exposed for us the fault lines that existed in our business model. And we thought we would have maybe 3, maybe 5 years to address those fault lines. But the reality is we only had 3 to 5 months to address the issues. How do we reduce expenses? How do we make sure that we're keeping our focus on the key areas, increasing philanthropic support, and then also taking advantage of programs as they may be? It was also important to keep an eye on the balance sheet, not just the P&L. How to make sure we didn't overload with debt, how to make sure that we were keeping an eye on deferred maintenance, and to ensure that we had enough liquidity to run our operations. The second area was in the area of mission. So how do you keep your mission alive, and how do you cope through that when you're a destination and you don't have any public coming to visit? Well, so like so many of you, we used our digital platforms, social media, and it was relatively easy when everybody's sitting at home but not much to do to have like a 10-fold increase in your viewership. The question is, how do you keep them close? How do you keep them engaged? And what about donors? How do you stay relevant and meaningful at a time when there were so many needs out there, food insecurity, unemployment, and the like? And so we focused on the storytelling and the issues of an interconnected planet, making sure that we were able to highlight the issues of people and nature. And since we weren't going to have any school groups coming, how do we outreach to the K to 4th school groups virtually and be able to do that? And then people. How do you keep your culture alive when your staff is physically separated? Ours is a culture that depends a lot on relationships. And so we had to make sure that through this period, we were keeping an eye on our staff and their physical health, but also their mental health. And working our way through that, we used all of our communication channels to do that. And we found the best way to deal with the issues of staff and people is to focus ourselves on something bigger than ourselves. And I would say that we'll come back to the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some of the things that we've done in that regard a little later on. And then finally, governance. I really do believe that you can't be a great organization unless you have a great board. Incredibly fortunate to have a great board, great governance, and tremendous commitment. I'll turn it over to Bill perhaps to address that question, Bernie.
Great. And as we go to Bill, so that this phrase, issues bigger than ourselves, is really the essence of what we're talking about today. And we've seen businesses respond in so many ways. Bill, I'm curious if you want to add to that perspective, but also from the board of directors looking lens, if you will, how has the board acted differently as you're answering that question as well, too, please?
Yeah, so, look, Vic captured pretty clearly, the challenges we faced and how we addressed it. When we first met as a board at the beginning of the pandemic, I would say there were 3 big ideas. One was just the tactical steps you need to take for financial liquidity and how to optimize that. We did all those we pulled all those levers. And I think we were very early and quick to do so. And try to make ourselves as financially resilient as possible, given the high fixed costs we had. So that was sort of step one. Step two was what Vic described, all about safety for the staff and for the animals. And how do we make sure that everybody's, as a board, we probed a lot on what was the leadership team and management team doing in that regard. And then the third thing, and this will, I think, lead into your second part of your question around governance. We really encourage the team to, what I like to call it, wrestle with a paradox of sort of the brutal reality of today, but also an eye to the future. And there's a very famous writing on this in Jim Collins's book, Good Great, where he describes what he calls the Stockdale paradox. And I won't take you through the whole story there, but worth Googling at some point for many of our viewers, I think. But the idea was confront the reality of today, honestly, and as fact-based as possible, but have an eye toward the future. And so as a board, we really encouraged leadership team and ourselves to be thinking about how would we emerge from this and what would be different in terms of operating model and so forth. And so from a governance standpoint, it's been a privilege being on the board. I joined the board right as Vic became CEO. And so, we're, I guess, coming up on 15 years together now. And, he and his team have done such an amazing job, but it's also a very hard working board. I say with great pride, we're the hardest working board in Philly. And people really love they love the mission and they love putting all their energy into it. But we had to really kind of figure out how to, harness that energy. And so we try to get our fiduciary committees that needed to, continue to meet and so forth, but just to have them focus on the critical issues. And, we tried to not be a burden on the staff as they were trying to figure out how to keep everybody safe and how to possibly reopen. We formed a task force, a subset of the board, it was roughly 6 people. I was on it as well. And we met every week. And we were there and we couldn't get the whole board. Our board's 38 people. So getting together every week was not realistic. So this task force really had the delegated authority, if you will, the board to work with management as management wrestled with all the different challenges and different options that we faced. And then the last thing I would say we did, Bernie, to your question is we tapped specific board expertise to partner with the management team where we really had opportunities or needs. And so, 2 just simple examples, and there were many more, but Vic alluded to the Black Lives Matter social justice issues of the summer. We had a couple of board members who had particular depth and expertise there who we were able to draw upon as we figured out, what did we want to, how do we want to respond to those issues? And then, as we began to rethink the financial model and what we were going to have to look like, we had, a couple of people with great expertise. One board member in particular stepped up to work with Vic and his team in actually building what I think is a state-of-the-art planning model. I think we could probably go out and sell it and license it, Vic. We hadn't talked about that, but it's a really great model, and it's going to give us the ability to manage ourselves in a much more flexible and adaptive way.
That's great. That's great. I wish we had more time to delve deeper into some of these issues as I'm hearing about it, because it's fascinating to me. Vic, I want to ask you, what has the board of directors provided to you in this time, and what are you looking for from them?
Bernie, we've always had a culture of openness and trust with the board. We're very fortunate that over the time that I've been at the zoo, I've had the privilege of working under 3 board chairs, each of whom were the exact right board chair at the time. Bill brought and brings continually a focus on good governance and an issue around connecting the day-to-day realities with our staff that has been so tremendously important. But what we've asked of our board is good governance and good stewardship. And Bill alluded to the issues around oversight. And during the period of significant uncertainty, we're very fortunate to be able to draw on the multiple perspectives of many board members who brought specific understandings of certain sectors, whether those sectors were higher ed, whether those sectors were in private industry or in public service, And that really did help us. Second was in the area of engagement, attending meetings, staying engaged, even in this Zoom format, and remaining connected to our staff. We opened every board meeting with one of our staff meeting talking about what they were going through and the issues and challenges. That was a way to make sure that the board remained connected and that their engagement could allow for better oversight and better stewardship from that perspective. In turn, I would reach out to every one of our board members and ask them to do things like pick up the phone and call one of our staff members that had done a great job on something, or a specific issue that had happened, or assist us with a particular donor opportunity and the like. And then finally, support. We were going through a difficult financial time, and every one of our board members, every one of them, have stepped up with an amazing level of generosity. So we couldn't have asked for more, but I think that Bill put his finger on something, which is you create engagement by asking people to do real work, but understanding that in the context of good governance. So it's good strategic work. Let the leadership run the organization day to day, but give the opportunity to the board to be involved in meaningful strategic direction issues. We're really grateful. Now, we got a lot of uncertainty still ahead, so the final chapter is not written here. But so far, it's been a great opportunity to continue building on great relationships here.
That's incredible. I'm going to stay with you, Vic, for a minute if I can, because I think that there was alluded to earlier, kind of a corporate social responsibility. A lot of nonprofits, including the Chamber, I think play an important role in this world of corporate social responsibility. But I know from talking to you in the past that you personally are very passionate about strengthening our region and the people who live here. Vic, can you talk a little bit about the role of a large nonprofit, but very specifically the zoo, in trying to make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to start with what are some of the characteristics that uniquely define the zoo. I spoke about one of those already. We're the most heavily visited destination, ticketed destination in the Philadelphia area. But what I didn't mention is we're also the most diverse. And so we have a very clear business imperative around our focus around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is the core audiences that we serve from every zip code, from every part of this region, in every nationality, ethnic origin, and the like. And so diversity becomes incredibly important to the zoo. But when you also remember that where we're physically located in West Philadelphia, we're surrounded by the neighborhoods that what we have seen were the most heavily impacted by the COVID infection. We also saw here in these neighborhoods, not just the highest infection rates, but also the highest impact from unemployment and also the poverty levels. So we thought that for us, not only pre-pandemic, but also post-pandemic, we cannot be a successful organization unless the ecosystem around us is healthy as well. And from that perspective, our focus has been very much on the immediate neighborhoods around us during this pandemic period. We have reached out to provide support working through community organizations in the neighborhoods around the issues of mental health, why it's so important to be outdoors at a time when you've spent several weeks without family members and others nearby. We picked a specific issue that we wanted to focus on and we wanted to make a systemic impact. And that was the issue around internet access. When you look at the neighborhoods around the zoo, what we saw was there was very limited Wi-Fi connectivity and most homes did not have internet access. Okay, well, that was maybe okay pre-pandemic, but then when you think about kids going virtual and needing to be able to connect, that became a huge issue. And we knew that we couldn't solve that on our own, but what we knew we could be is a small rock in a very big shoe. Anytime anybody was talking about this, we wanted to be front and center and say why we thought internet access was part of the issues around social justice and systemic racism and why it was so important. So we put our weight behind that specific issue and wanted to make sure that we were able to make a difference.
That's great. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'd like to turn to Bill and actually, Bill, it's interesting because we have our Leadership Mainline banners with me today. And I know you're familiar with the program. We've had some individuals from Vanguard have spoken to our class before. Our cohort of 20 is now going through the program, including a couple of Vanguard crew members, in fact, which we're very pleased about. And the whole topic of leadership, I mean, I wanted to ask you, when you look to what, as a board, and as a chairman to what Vic has done, probably pre-pandemic and now as well. What are the traits that you see that have been maybe just a trait or two, because I know there are many. What's a key point or two that you think that Vic has exhibited that has been really important through this pandemic?
Yeah, again, without wanting to sound too patronizing to Vic, I got to keep him on his toes here, Bernie. But he, Vic has so many great leadership qualities. But if I had to sum it up into two broad areas, I'd say one, the phrase servant leader comes to mind when I think of Vic. And I believe very strongly in the concept that, most organizational charts are drawn upside down. They put the CEO at the top and the frontline people at the bottom. I think you should flip that, and that the job of every leader, every CEO, is to clear the way so that your people can do the work that's so necessary to take care of their constituents. And, for us, our constituents are our guests, our community, and very importantly, our animal collection. And Vic just exudes that servant leadership mindset, where it's all about how do we make sure we're doing the right thing for those different stakeholder groups that I just mentioned. And as part of that, one of the things that you look for as a board is somebody who's very realistic, yet at the same time relentlessly positive. And this goes back to that paradox that I mentioned earlier, but Vic's got great financial expertise. And so, he saw the implications of this financially, very early. But he never lost the relentless positive energy and enthusiasm. And that really creates great energy within the organization, great energy within the board, and frankly, great energy at the entire institution, our guests included. So that relentless positive energy, but not being Pollyanna, being very realistic, really has been very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. And that is a trait that so many of our chamber members, whether they're a small business leader or an entrepreneur, it's hard to be in business. It's hard to run a nonprofit if you can't have a positive outlook in the future. And I like that term, relentlessly positive. I think we'll be using that in our follow-up document to this event, I believe. Vic, I got to give you fair chance to say a thing or two about what Bill has brought to the table through this time.
Yeah, I think one of the key characteristics is having a relationship between the CEO and the board chair that is very open, very candid, be able to sort of confront those brutal truths when they occur and be able to move forward. I will say, Bernie, that one of my heroes in life that I did have a chance to meet many, many years ago is Nelson Mandela. And one of the things that Nelson Mandela says is that when times are good, you lead from the rear. You allow others to have the opportunity to take credit and to be able to have the good fortune of things that are happening. But in times of crisis, you lead from the front. And what I've particularly appreciated in my time of working with Bill is that when times have been good, he has led from the back and allowed other members of the board to take credit, our staff and others to be front and center, to know that they are the ones that are responsible for our success and the things that are happening. But when we faced our moments of perhaps the greatest crisis as America's first zoo, having been in business for 161 years, when we faced that moment, he stepped up to the front and helped us lead from the front, helped provide direction and confidence in the kinds of things we needed to do. And that juxtaposition is something I really value. That's
great. Vic, I'm going to ask you to answer. You've been a business leader as well as a nonprofit leader in this region, and like me, I think you're a student of the region and pay a lot of attention to what's going on. What could we be doing better, or how do you think we're doing in this response to the pandemic when it comes to the collaboration between nonprofits and businesses? We'll leave government out of it perhaps for this question. How are we doing?
Bernie, I think we could do better. I think that sometimes when we're in times of trouble, our heads go down and we focus on what's right in front of us, and we don't look for opportunity to bring our heads up and look at things across how we are working together. This is a moment where what could take multiple years to get done can be done quicker. How we can collaborate around the issues of systemic racism and diversity, what we can do to come together to be partners in the issues of what our neighborhoods face. How do we raise the issues around an interconnected planet and the things that we could be doing to create greater awareness of things that people can do in their everyday lives to understand their relationship with the outdoors and the nature as such. We tend to be very focused and insular in terms of how we work together as nonprofits and how we work with our key stakeholder groups. I think that over the course of this last year, there have been moments where we've come together to do good work together. But I think this is an opportunity area coming out of this because I do believe that this next couple of years are going to be Darwinian for many. And I think this is an opportunity for us to face those together and think about those together. I think there's a tremendous opportunity. So I would give us a B- there, Bernie. I don't think we've done as well as we could. And I think there's an opportunity to do more without relying on the public sector to do that, just the collaboration that could exist with the private sector and between nonprofits themselves.
Bill, I'm going to ask you to wrap us up by addressing that topic, and don't feel just limited to this health and economic crisis we're going through, but the region's ability to collaborate and make a difference. How are we doing? Is there something missing? What could we be doing better?
Yeah, I think Vic captured an awful lot of it, and the good news, Bernie, is there's a lot of activity around this. But if I actually kind of were to sort of laser in on the thing that worries me the most, it's the young people, it's the kids. This pandemic has certainly underscored the tremendous divides in our society. The gaps between those who have and those who need. And we've seen it, whether it's access to healthcare, access to the internet, access to quality education. Those gaps have become more pronounced, not less pronounced during this pandemic. But when so that's an awful lot, for businesses to get their heads around that and government to get their heads around it. But I think we've got to have an incredible focus on kids right now because they are going through this a whole generation of kids, school age kids in particular, who this is going to have a profound impact on them. And I'm very worried that there's not nearly enough energy around that topic. We're trying to do so many different things. So I really and I think businesses are going to have to step up here. This has typically been the purview of government and whatnot. I don't think they're getting it done. So I think we're going to, as corporations, if we want to be existing in great, strong communities, we're going to have to help take this on.
Okay, great. A lot of great thoughts, a lot of good takeaways for me. I've made some notes here, and I think that they're going to give us, both of your comments will give us some discussion points and takeaways that we can talk about when we get into the breakout rooms in the next portion. Thank you to both of you, Bill and Vic, for not just being here with us today, but for the leadership roles you both play, really outsized roles, in my opinion, in your region of taking responsibility of the ability to make a difference and the responsibility to make a difference and the desire to have a positive impact on those who live and grow in this region. And I know many, I try not to speak for other people, but I know that many people on this call today and on this event share your passion and want to help. And hopefully today we can come up with some takeaways that will lead to action in the right direction. So thank you, Vic and Bill. Next up, we're very pleased to introduce our presenting sponsor she's a partner with Stradley, Ronan, Stevens & Young and a member of the Mainline Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, Deborah Hong. And she's going to introduce some nonprofits that we'll be hearing from. So Deb, welcome.
Thank you, Bernie. I am really glad to be a part of this portion of the program to introduce the 3 nonprofits that the Chamber is featuring today. But first, I just want to take a moment to applaud you, Bernie, and your entire team and the Chamber for the tremendous work that we are seeing taking place. There really has been no pause in the Chamber's work. And in fact, I know you're working even harder during these challenging times to outreach and to make an impact. So thank you very much. My firm, Stradley Ronan, knows how important this work is in our communities, and we are proud to be part of the Chamber's mission. We believe that it is the firm's responsibility to give back to the communities in which we work and live. We perpetuate a culture of contribution within our firm and have an army of attorneys and staff that proudly volunteer to assist nonprofits across the greater Philadelphia region, from preparing meals to sewing masks to providing pro bono legal services. But most notably, Stradley Ronan donates more than $1 million each year to Greater Philadelphia charities. These funds are critical to the survival of today's nonprofit organizations. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce 3 compelling nonprofits that the Chamber is featuring today as part of our program. Each of these organizations is focused on helping people rise out of poverty and overcome other challenges to help them become successful contributing members of society. You are about to hear from 3 outstanding women executive directors who will be talking about specific programs designed to bring about positive change. They are Judge Renee Hughes of OIC Philadelphia, Denise Ash of OIC Norristown, and Donna Cooper of Public Citizens for Children and Youth. So on behalf of Stradley Ronan and the Mainline Chamber, please enjoy the rest of today's program. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Judge Renee Hughes, CEO of Philadelphia OIC. Philadelphia OIC is a workforce development corporation. Our mission is simple: to eradicate poverty. And there really is only one way to eradicate poverty: through education and training. We prepare people for life-sustaining jobs, family-supporting jobs. Today, I'd like to share with you one of our most successful programs, BankWorks. BankWorks is designed to train people to enter into the financial services industry. It is an amazing program. It is an amazing program because it is incredibly successful. Our graduates, 85% of whom complete the program, and 85% remain employed after graduation. What's unique about BankWorks is that we partner with financial institutions. They advise us on the curriculum to ensure that we're training people for the jobs that exist, the jobs the industry needs. They also participate in our program. They lecture to our students, and most importantly, we have a job fair on the day of graduation. I believe it is one of the reasons that our employment rate is so high. Our partners are vested. BankWorks is just one of the many opportunities we have for people who want to leave poverty and have a better life. To learn more about all of the programs at Philadelphia OIC and BankWorks, go to our website, philaoic.org. Bernie, thank you for this opportunity to introduce Philadelphia OIC to the Mainline Chamber.
My name is Denise Ash, and I'm the president and CEO of Montgomery County OIC, located in Norristown, Pennsylvania. We have been serving the community here for over 55 years, and it is a blessing to be here with you today, the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. I'm just going to briefly give you some information on our SOAR program. SOAR means skills, opportunities, achievement, responsibilities to a brighter future. Our SOAR program is a reentry program that serves residents of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. We do adults over 25 years who are on active parole, probation, or have been released from a jail, prison, or system within the last 6 months. We offer assistance with education training, such as getting a GED, a high school diploma, and we are a Pearson VUE testing site. We also give you gainful workforce as employable skills that can be used in leading industries. Some of these being forklift, temporary nursing assistants, serve safe managerial training, pre-apprenticeship, and others with national recognized certifications. In addition, we work with some of the employers in the area, and we have partnership arrangements where they do hire participants that are leaving our program. We do job placement skills, we do soft skills, and we also provide supportive services for our participants, including but not limited to housing, transportation, medical insurance, child care, and also some behavior and mental health services and treatments. We are a well-rounded wraparound program. We're glad to be able to provide these services to residents of Montgomery County, and we were just awarded an additional grant called Pathways, which will continue serving these participants and clients for another 3 years. So it has been an honor to be here to talk about our programs today. We appreciate you. Any help we could get in transportation, housing, and placement of our reentry clients into one of your programs or one of your operations would be greatly appreciated. And you have a blessed day and be safe. And thanks again for this opportunity.
Hi, I'm Donna Cooper. I am the Executive Director of Public Citizens for Children and Youth, and we are a proud member of the Mainline Chamber. And it's our honor to be here today at this important summit on impact and volunteerism. We make a big impact for kids, and we do that together with the members of this chamber and the residents in Southeastern Pennsylvania, where we work together to improve the lives of children, especially those who face the greatest odds in life, coming from low-income families, coming from minority and immigrant families, where they're likely to be living in communities that are lower wealth and face greater odds, barriers to success. So let's talk about what we do specifically. We work to change state policy so that more children go to high quality childcare and pre-K programs. And that's a win-win for employers, whether they're nonprofit or for-profit, because when parents know they have a really reliable, high quality place to leave their children, they're better workers. And we have enabled thousands of more families to enroll their children in high quality childcare and pre-K just over the last 7 years when this has become our priority. We work on expanding healthcare coverage. We were critical to the formation of the state's and now nation's benchmark program, the Children's Health Insurance Program. And we continue to work to improve the dental, the eye care, preventative healthcare services for children across the region. And we also work to make sure the most vulnerable children, those who are abused and neglected, are treated well in our systems. And there's a lot of work to do there. But I want to talk to you today about our K-12 work, where we're working to improve the school districts in our region. Unfortunately, 8 out of 10 children who are Black or Hispanic are attending an underfunded school district across the state. And most of those children are attending those school districts right here in Southeastern PA. And while there are some very, very spectacular school districts that have ample resources to educate their children, so many of our districts are not in that situation. And they end up being the school districts, again, where our Black and Hispanic young children are trying to do their best by us. But we have a big gap between academic achievement between Black and Hispanic students and their white students, and that tracks the resources that's available to a school district. And unfortunately, when we go to an under-resourced school district, it's harder to get really good curricula because the districts don't have the resources to make that happen. In fact, tragically, we live in a state with the greatest gap between wealthy and poor school districts in the country. Our state is 47th among the 50 states when it comes to investing in schools. And the impact of that is felt hardest on our Black and Hispanic students who are living in our lowest wealth communities. And that's holding back our progress in this region. And we lead the fight in the state to change that. The state needs to move up from the 47th. And as they do that and begin investing in our schools, our region will rise, and the businesses and the nonprofits who are members of the Mainline Chamber, we will rise with them. So we are very grateful to be here today, and we hope you will support our work on behalf of these children and make a donation to pccy.org/donate. When you contribute to us, you know that you're making an investment in scale solutions for kids that are proven to be effective and that they are sustained. It's not a one-time program. We change the policy permanently. We're grateful to be here today. We join you in wanting to make an impact for children. And please remember, PCCY is here to work with you to improve the lives of children in the Mainline area.
Great, thank you to Renee Hughes and Denise Ash and Donna Cooper for sharing part of your story today. We were pleased to feature these nonprofits that are striving, among the many that are striving to make a difference in our region. And some of those are on the call. You'll be meeting them in the next portion of today's event. So now I will ask you all, there is within the chat today a link that will take you to the meeting portion of today's Zoom event. And if you can go ahead and start clicking on that link and moving into the meeting room, I will join you there momentarily. If anyone is having any trouble getting over there, I know that we have Nicole Stevenson, the director of our Society of Professional Women, who is in this room. So you can, within the chat, let her know you're having trouble, and she might be able to definitely can provide some guidance to help you get into the meeting room. So I will join you there in just a minute. And thanks very much. We'll see you on the other side.
Hi, everyone. It's Nicole. I just wanted to make sure you can hear me and see me. If you need any help, I'm going to look in the chat now to make sure. I'm going to stop our